Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. The old chief shook his head and said, it's impossible for him to reignite the sun. It has long died down and only the appearance of a fire god of pure yang could reignite it. Don't worry, little friend Qin not only won't be able to reignite the sun, he won't even get near it. It's too hot over there. Even though it's an extinguished sun, its power is still no small matter. Look. He raised his arm, which was as long as a flying bridge. He then pointed below them and said, when we, the sun herders, choose our sun guardian, we look for a person with a natural-born pure yang so their blood would assist the true fire in order to ignite the sun furnace. It's merely an ordinary treasure, but lighting it up is already so difficult. It's even more impossible to reignite the sun. Human Emperor Qin has a god's eye, he might just be able to, Ling Yuxiu said angrily. The old chief cut her off and said, we, the sun herders, had also found numerous god's eyes and god's blood over the years to reignite the sun, but none of them had worked. There's no need for you to say any more, observe the ceremony. Ling Yuxiu was furious. We had come to help you reignite the sun, brushing over full sincerity. Yet you aren't willing to, so aren't you sun herders bitterly disappointing us with your actions? The old chief's gaze landed on her and he said seriously, it's not that we, the sun herders, are not reasonable. It's just that we need to choose the next sun guardian. After the sun sets, the darkness will invade and that's when the soul of sun guardian will return to sunship. She can no longer hold on anymore. Without Sun Guardian, our Sun Herd tribe will surely be unable to defend against the invasion of those evil devils. The Moon Herders are already wiped out, and if the Sun Herders are wiped out as well, the devil gods will come to control Great Ruins. Do you think the world outside Great Ruins will be able to defend against them? Right now, choosing the next Sun Guardian is of utmost importance. Ling Yuxiu was stunned. Cai Yunxiang sneered and said, even if you choose the next Sun Guardian, so what? Aren't they still going to die in sunship, fusing into it? It's an honor to die protecting the tribesmen and Great Ruins, the old chief said solemnly. Little friends, don't worry, little friend Qin will be fine. He won't be able to get near that black sun and he will retreat when he finds out what it's really like, another elder nearby said. The other elders all nodded. But at that moment, a vast heat wave suddenly pulsed through the building. The expressions of the old chief and the few elders changed instantly. They got up with astonishment evident in their eyes. This pulse, that extinguished sun. This is bad. Little friend Qin. Boom. The old chief and the elders rushed into the sky, opening a hole in the majestic sun shrine's roof. Hu Linga immediately shouted out, and the dragon Qilin brought them after the giants. Once out, they looked at the sky. The sunlight was dazzling. The black sun had vanished without a trace, having been replaced by a sun blazing with yellow-white rays and emanating heat. Young master will be fine, right? Hu Linga immediately made the dragon Qilin fly toward the sun. Ling Yuxiu was also anxious as she hurried the dragon Qilin again and again. Only Cai Yunxiang's heart bloomed with joy. I'm going to become a charming widow. They flew into midair, but the dragon Qilin suddenly changed his direction. He flew toward the pillars below, stunning the girls. They then looked there and saw two figures as well as a group of flood dragons. The dragon Qilin landed, and the three girls immediately jumped down. They saw Qin Mu laying down a frail and thin girl from sunship on the floor. Ling Yuxiu hurriedly went forward. The one who herds cows, you. Shush. Qin Mu put a finger on his lips and said in a low voice, she fainted. I'm quite skilled in nursing girls, my reputation of the divine physician comes from Flower Alley. Ling Yuxiu pinched him with ruthlessness under the armpit and grumbled. I was worried to death. I said that there will be no danger. Awaken. Qin Mu said with a smile. Layers of formation swirled in his eyes as he opened Cinnabar Heaven's eyes. He then executed secrets of dragon control and a flood dragon flew over. It leaned on his shoulder while its body coiled around his waist. With the borrowed dragon chi, Qin Mu's cultivation rose drastically, and more layers of formation surged in his eyes. He opened all 9 layers of heaven's eyes to check on Yang Jingjing's body. After a moment, he dispersed secrets of dragon control, and the layers of heavens in his eyes faded away. However, the flood dragon didn't leave his shoulder and continued to lay there comfortably. Maha! The flood dragon opened its mouth to yawn, growing sleepy. Hu Linga immediately ran over and grabbed onto the corner of Qin Mu's shirt to climb up. Go down, go down. Go sleep elsewhere, this is my spot. That flood dragon could only scramble down. Hu Linga sat on Qin Mu's shoulder and swung her feet from side to side. Her snow-white tail swayed around proudly. Qin Mu muttered to himself for a moment before saying, Linga, I will read the prescription and you will grab the herbs. Hu Linga gave a sound of acknowledgement and transformed back into a little fox which jumped into his Daotai sack. Qin Mu read the names of all the herbs he needed, and a whirlwind in Daotai sack brought them out. Ling Yuxiu saw their chemistry and felt slightly jealous of the little fox. She took a glance and smiled at Cai Yunxiang. No more chance to be the charming widow. Cai Yunxiang giggled and said, Cult Master likes to play with his life, so he will play himself to death sooner or later. It's still very likely that I'll become a charming widow. Qin Mu refined a few furnaces of spirit pills and fed them to the fainted Yang Jingjing. He was separating the rest of the pills when the old chief brought the elders back from the sun. From far away, their loud voices could be heard. We didn't find little friend Qin, he has most likely turned into ash. Before the elder could finish his sentence, he saw Qin Mu. The group couldn't hide its astonishment. Qin Mu in the meantime finished separating the medicines. Linga, feed her a portion every day and night. Chief, mission accomplished. The old chief suppressed the throbbing in his heart and asked, How did little friend Qin ignite the sun? How did you come back alive? Qin Mu smiled and said, It's very simple. I used secrets of dragon control to have the fire flood dragons lend their magic power to me. I then adjusted the power of Sun Jade to its maximum and threw it into the black sun, which then ignited it. He gave a simple description, but the old chief knew how big was Qin Mu's sacrifice. A treasure that could ignite the black sun was no little thing, yet he'd had no hesitation in parting with it. He couldn't help feeling guilty in his heart. Qin Mu was so selfless, yet he wasn't willing to come forth and assist him earlier. Comparing the two acts, he was ashamed to show his face. Sister Jing needs to rest for a few days. Her body is too exhausted, and my spirit pills will only help to replenish some of her vital qi. Qin Mu had a solemn expression as he added, her lifespan was exhausted, and it's hard to retrieve it. I can only help nurse her back and stop her lifespan from deteriorating. The old chief let out a sigh of relief and said, It's already a huge kindness to save her life. What's more, little friend Qin even helped our sun herd tribe by igniting our sun. Such a kindness I won't forget until my death. Little friend Qin, now that Jinga is unconscious, we still need a sun guardian to defend against the invasion of the devil gods tonight. May little friend come and observe the ceremony. You mustn't. Qin Mu's palm came into contact with a pillar and the old chief's expression changed. He immediately went up to stop him, but he was a step late. Qin Mu's palm had already touched the surface of the pillar. Instantly, boundless energy burst forth and flooded Qin Mu. In an instant, he roared fiercely and true fire blazed around him. His corporeal body became larger and larger, and his other arm took hold of the other pillar without having a choice in the matter. His muscles expanded, and 2 more arms came out from under his armpits to grab hold of the remaining 2 pillars. In a split second, he transformed into a god that was bathing in the sun's true fire. God's prestige surged out wave after wave and smacked the surroundings, making people feel like they were standing in fierce waves. The old chief protected Hu Linga, Ling Yuxiu, and the rest. With a dazed look, he raised his head up to see the 300 yards giant. Suddenly, he came to realization and knelt down on one knee. He lowered his head and greeted, Your Highness. Behind him, the elders also knelt down on one knee and lowered their heads. Your Highness. Ling Yuxiu, Cai Yunxiang, and the rest were puzzled. They saw the giants of Sun Herd tribe walking over, coming to the pillars in silence. They all knelt down on one knee. "Your Highness." Cai Yinxiang moved to Ling Yuxiu's ear and whispered, "Princess Xiu, the one who herds cows seems to have an even more powerful background than you." Ling Yuxiu and the rest were all astonished. They saw more and more sun herders walking over and kneeling down on one knee while greetings of Your Highness rang out continuously. By then, nearly all of the sun herders had come and were looking at them. There was close to 100,000 of them kneeling down on one knee with their heads lowered. There was no emperor among the sun herders, and Qin Mu was not even a sun herder, so in which place was he a royal person? Could Qin Mu be the Highness of Great Ruins? Or is he the Highness of Carefree Village? Is the one who herds cows the Crown Prince of Great Ruins? Ling Yuxia was slightly at a loss. Cowherd boy still had such a background? How was he able to steer this sunship and control its power? Hu Linga, on the other hand, was slightly disappointed. Isn't young master a male fox turned intelligent? Qin Mu loosened his grip, and his figure gradually returned back to normal. The two arms that had popped out also disappeared. He then immediately helped the old chief up and said, "Chief, quickly have all the tribesmen stand up." "Thank you, Your Highness." The old chief rose and said solemnly, "I didn't know about Your Highness's identity before, so please forgive me if I have offended you in any way." He turned around and raised his arms up high while shouting to the sun herders below. "People of the sun herder tribe who had protected Sun well, the Highness of Carefree Village is here. Carefree Village has not forgotten us. The long wait, the painstaking 20,000 years, we have made it. Sunwell won't fall. The sun herders won't be wiped out." Delight spread across the faces of the earthly-looking sun herders. They cheered and laughed loudly. The pressure brought by the days of struggles and the cruelty of war all vanished without a trace. The invasion of the devil gods had shrouded the sun herders near the sun well with a dark cloud of pressing extermination. All of the tribesmen were fighting with their lives for the future of their tribe, however, they didn't have the confidence of avoiding this calamity. The pressure on them grew heavier and heavier, and the atmosphere in the tribe also became more and more stifling. However, with Qin Mu's arrival, their vanished hope had once again been reignited. It was a party with giants running and cheering. Some of them cried from happiness while others danced and sung. A few of them went to inform the injured soldiers, dying elders, while others went to offer incense to their ancestors and thank them for the blessing. Is Chief mistaken? Qin Mu looked at the people partying below in puzzlement. He said to the old chief, "I'm not Your Highness." The old chief shook his head. "If you aren't a sun herder, then there's only one way for you to be able to control sunship, and that's by being a royalty. Back when Zi Qin created sunship under the emperor's order, other than the sun guardian with the body of pure yang, the other group of people he allowed to control it was the royalty. Your Highness isn't a sun herder, so you naturally have to be a royalty from Carefree Village." Qin Mu shook his head. "I'm the overlord body, and overlord body is the body of pure yang as well." "Overlord body? What overlord body?" The chief was in a daze. The party below was getting rowdier and rowdier until it was extremely bustling. He probed, "Your Highness, is overlord body the name for the royal bloodline?" Qin Mu couldn't help being suspicious. Was overlord body really the name for royalty? Yet it seemed like something was wrong somewhere in that question. If overlord body was the name for royalty, could Xu Shenhua be a royalty too? If he was royalty, what was the so-called true and pseudo-overlord bodies that village chief had mentioned? Could there be pseudo-royal bloodlines too? If overlord body didn't belong to royalty, was it then the body of pure yang? If it was the body of pure yang, why could Qin Mu control moonship? Doubt grew in his heart. He wanted to find village chief to ask for clarification. He had always known himself to be overlord body, having an invincible belief in it. In regards to that, he strongly believed village chief's words. However, the words of the chief of the sun herders made him suspicious. After the party, the chief gave the order to continue choosing the next sun guardian, and the sun herders were puzzled. However, they still returned back to the sun shrine. Qin Mu also brought Ling Yuxiu and the rest over. As a royalty, they were waited upon as guests of honor. Qin Mu looked down and saw numerous sun herders going forward to light up the sun furnace. However, it would die down right after being ignited by most of them, and not one of them could last for a long time. What was even weirder was when they ignited the sun furnace, there would be marvelous apparitions appearing within it. There were pictures of unusual animal breeds, like fire dragons, fire phoenixes, fire flood dragons, and fire Qilin, which gave off wonderful sounds. Ling Yuxiu and the rest felt extremely weird. Cai Yunxiang said in a low voice, "The sights in the furnace are like spirit bodies, yet they don't look the same." Everyone nodded. There were 4 great spirit bodies, which were vermilion bird, black tortoise, green dragon, and white tiger. The 4 great spirit bodies was the collective term, while each name was a main category. A person might not have the form of vermilion bird, black tortoise, green dragon, or white tiger, but they might one of the numerous dragon wolf spirit bodies in Wolf Store country. And it originated from green dragon spirit body. However, from the apparitions that appeared in the sun furnace, the spirit bodies of the sun herders had fire dragons and fire phoenixes. All of them looked like branches of vermilion bird spirit body. However, vermilion bird spirit body didn't seem to be the so-called body of pure yang. Instead, it was a fire attribute spirit body. But the spirit bodies of the sun herders couldn't be simply classified as vermilion bird spirit body. Chief, could the world not only have the 4 great spirit bodies? Qin Mu asked in suspicion. 4 great spirit bodies? You mean green dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise types of spirit bodies? The old chief shook his head and said, "Body of pure yang is not among these 4 great spirit bodies." As expected, everyone's hearts trembled violently. There was indeed not only 4 great spirit bodies, there were still other ones. For great spirit bodies should be a term from the people outside great ruins, right? The old chief asked. There's not only the 4 great spirit bodies in this world. There's still body of pure yang, body of pure yin, as well as even stronger spirit bodies. The saying of 4 great spirit bodies came during the period of the last phase. There are some legends in my tribe that there were many spirit bodies in the past, as many as a few hundred types. However, after the great calamity, most of them vanished. Restrictions were placed in the people outside great ruins, which is why there are only the 4 great spirit bodies left. Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang looked at each other, their gazes both empty and full of fright. It was completely different from what they had heard. The abandoned people in great ruins were supposed to be the ones sealed and cursed, never allowed to leave great ruins. If they stepped a foot outside, they had to be killed without mercy. How did it then become that the people outside great ruins were the sealed ones? There are only 4 great spirit bodies outside, the old chief said. Yet there can be many other types of spirit bodies within great ruins, so the ones sealed are the people outside. They live in a cage, yet they don't know about it themselves, living under a fake starry sky, cultivated by the gods. They are just a bunch of pitiful bugs. Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang grunted. When the people of Eternal Peace Empire saw the abandoned people of great ruins, they found them as pitiful as bugs. Yet they would have never expected that they were the real pitiful bugs in the eyes of the people outside. Great ruins was free. It had the true sky. The old chief's words sent their hearts in disarray. However, when Qin Mu linked it to the calculation Heaven Alliance had done, discovering that the sun, moon, and stars were fake, he felt the words of the old chief were pretty logical. What was sealed couldn't be great ruins, but the outside world. Chief, this world should have Overlord body too, right? He asked confidently. The old chief shook his head. Your Highness, I have never heard of Overlord body before. In the tribe's records, there is nothing about such a constitution. Qin Mu waved his hand and said with a smile, if you don't know, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Your knowledge is too shallow, not like that of my village's chief who is experienced and knowledgeable. Chief, if I was this Highness, a royalty, could I ignite the sun furnace? The old chief smiled and said, even though your Highness is royalty, it's probably impossible to ignite the sun furnace. It can only use the blood from the body of pure yang as a guide, igniting the furnace with true fire. Without the body of pure yang, it's impossible to do it. We, the Sun-Herder tribe, widely known for our bodies of pure yang, and only we can ignite the sun furnace. Not even the royalty can. Qin Mu jumped down and walked toward the sun furnace. However, the blood of Overlord body can ignite the sun furnace. He went to the platform and slit open his wrist. Fresh blood flowed into sun furnace and Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly as he executed true fire which surged into the sun furnace. Boom! The sun furnace instantly blazed fiercely as though a sun had risen, releasing surging heat waves and heat energy. In a split second, sunlight lit up the whole sun shrine. In the sun furnace, there were no apparitions of fire dragons or fire Qilin. Instead, there was a human figure, and it became larger and larger until it filled up the entire sun furnace. It then walked out with its hands clasped around the sun furnace as though holding a sun in front of its chest. Qin Mu dispersed the true fire, and the sun furnace was instantly extinguished. The human figure disappeared at the same time, and the sun furnace landed back onto the backs of the three god statues. Qin Mu's confidence was reignited, and he returned back up. He smiled toward the dumbfounded chief of the sun herders. Now, does this prove that I'm an overlord body? The old chief had a dazed expression, feeling slightly puzzled. He muttered, the royalty can also possess the body of pure yang. It must be this case. Qin Mu shook his head and smiled. This is the effect of overlord body. He was full of confidence. Village chief indeed didn't lie to me. There's really overlord body in this world. Yet he didn't know that he possessed the most ordinary body which had no attributes. It was because he was a piece of white paper that he was able to change his attribute as he willed. He could transform into 4 great spirit bodies and control the vital chi of vermilion bird, black tortoise, green dragon, and white tiger. He could also transform into body of pure yang and control the pure yang vital chi. It wasn't because of any overlord body. Ever since village chief had mentioned overlord body, Qin Mu had struggled and cultivated diligently. The constitution of a normal person could also go through an unimaginable change. He used 1,000 times more hard work than others to transform his constitution again and again, slowly walking towards an unknown. This created numerous possibilities that couldn't be predicted in his future. Qin Mu treated it as him being the overlord body, ignoring his hard work when cultivating. Chief, the sky is almost dark, an elder of the sun herders suddenly said solemnly. The old chief's heart tightened, and he looked toward Qin Mu. Your Highness, the monsters from the foreign territory are going to invade once more. May your Highness assist us. Qin Mu nodded as he saw the sky barrier of sun well being shrouded by darkness. The surroundings shone with bright light while the outside filled with complete darkness. The sun herders on sunship flew into midair and surveyed the barrier that shrouded sun well anxiously as though a great enemy was arriving. The barrier of sun well was formed by the rays spewed out from the well, forming a light body of a hemisphere. It covered the sun well and formed a heaven and earth with a radius of several hundred yards. Qin Mu had never been to sun well, but he reckoned that there had to be a trick outside the light hemisphere to conceal itself so it wouldn't be eye-catching and would not stand out. Otherwise, news of a huge golden ball shining radiantly in great ruins would have long spread throughout the place and even to the outside world. Fengju was somewhat similar. It would only appear at night, and it couldn't be seen at all. One could only go into it by chance and coincidence. Sunwell had to be like that too. If one was in great ruins, they might not be able to see Sunwell at all. That was why it wasn't an easy place to find. The devil gods had to have spent a great deal of effort trying to find it. The sky barrier of Sunwell was shining radiantly as though they forged from golden leaves. Suddenly a huge face appeared behind it and tried to squeeze in. It looked like it wanted to get into the Sunwell. The face's chin was very long, like a handle, and the mouth was located at its bottom. There was only one eye that was humongous and took up the center of the face. It was like a huge ball propped on top of the nose bridge, which looked very weird. Which world is this devil god from? Qin Mu was stunned. He had not seen a devil god that looked like that. At that moment, he suddenly heard a smacking sound coming from all directions. He saw more and more weird faces sticking against the sky barrier. In the blink of an eye, its whole size of several hundred yards was covered with faces. They were of all sizes and all looked different. However, their structure was the same, with a huge, disproportionate eye in the center and a mouth located at the bottom of a long chin. The eyeballs were rolling around here and there, looking at the interesting stuff inside the barrier while giving off peculiar smiles that made everyone's scalp crawl. Suddenly, the eyeballs all looked toward the sun that was chained up in midair and filled with astonishment. "These are body replicators," the old chief said with a solemn face. "This devil race is different from others of their kin, for they are proficient in assimilation. When they meet a life form, they will assimilate it and change it wholly, turning it into their clansman or even part of them." Qin Mu was slightly stunned. To assimilate the opponent and turn them into their clansman or part of them. There was really such a weird race? The most bizarre point about the body replicators is that they share the same mind. Fear showed up on the old chief's face, but quickly concealed it in his heart. If you get caught by them, your mind will join theirs. Body replicator devil god usually has close to billions of replicated bodies. Its mind is incomparably powerful, and if you are caught by one of his bodies, it'll crush your mind easily and reform you into one of them. Ling Yuxiu, Cai Yunxiang, and the rest couldn't help feeling a chill run down their spine. If such a devil god rushed out of great ruins and came to Eternal Peace Empire would probably become part of the body replicator devil race in a matter of days. Who could withstand billions of minds gathered together? It looked like it was truly like what the old chief of the Sun Herders had said: if the Sun Herders were wiped out, the devil gods in great ruins would be able to break free and the world outside would be wiped out as well. Suddenly, the faces in the sky vanished and the old chief immediately said, "May your highness control sunship to assist us." Qin Mu immediately flew over to the pillars and stretched his hand out to touch one of them. The boundless energy in sunship came flooding toward him and caused his corporeal body to expand drastically. His aura also climbed crazily, breaking through 7 stars, celestial being, life and death and divine bridge to enter an unknown realm. Boom! Explosions came from his body, which was produced by the opening of his divine treasures. However, since the speed of it all happening was too fast, it was as if there was only one loud explosion. God's aura burst forth in all directions from his body and caused a short warp in space. What followed afterward was the ripples of space trembling. How powerful! A world-shaking voice came from Qin Mu's mouth. By then, he had become one with sunship, and the energy coming from it was even much greater than what he'd gotten from moonship. Its moon had been extinguished and about to crumble, whereas the sun of sunship had been reignited by him. Due to that, the ship's energy had increased greatly. That energy was the chi of pure yang, which was incomparably violent, filling his heart with the desire to destroy. 2 arms grew from under his armpits and grabbed hold of the other 2 pillars. The energy in Qin Mu's body was still rising frantically, and at that moment, he heard a pop sound and looked back in astonishment. A thick and sturdy leg had grown out from his tailbone. Would Sister Jing grow a 3rd leg as well, he thought to himself secretly. Standing with 3 legs on the ground, Qin Mu had a stable footing and his confidence was instantly boosted as he looked toward the sky barrier. It was abnormally quiet, then there was a sudden explosion when a long chin pierced the barrier of sun well. The mouth opened up, and countless body replicators flew out from it. They looked like countless bugs. Black as night, they looked like a dark cloud. It grew furiously and transformed into a black sea. It surged forth and pounced towards sunship. Ling Yuxiu, Cai Yunxiang, and the rest raised their heads to take a look and their scalp crawled. The countless body replicating devils were actually moving up and down like the waves. The numbers at which they were pouring down could drown out sunship in one go. That long chin that had stabbed through the sky barrier was spewing more and more devils. Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang had both been on the battlefield before and experienced the baptism if it in Wolf's Store country. During that attack, the scale of the battle was huge and tens of thousands of soldiers had clashed on the wasteland. When the divine arts practitioners, huge beasts, and flying ships went for one another, flesh and blood flew in all directions. However, it was a completely different sight from what was in front of their eyes at that moment. It paled into insignificance in comparison and didn't deserve to be mentioned. Attack! On sunship, the Sun Herders roared with excitement and took out their spirit weapons. They were fired up and ready to welcome the incoming battle. Linga was also fired up by their hot-bloodedness and raised her tiny arms while her face was red with excitement. Her voice was still soft and immature as she shouted loudly, "Attack!" The flood dragons behind her also became excited, and they all stretched out their necks while overflowing with murderous intent. They all opened their mouths to roar, "Maha!" Linga jumped onto the back of the dark green flood dragon and pulled out her small sword to point at the sky. She also shouted along with the bunch of dragons, "Maha!" The bunch of dragons was abnormally excited, and before the war even broke out, they brought the little fox into the sky and fought their way through a bunch of devils pouncing at them. "Linga, this girl is really as reckless as the cult master." Xianxiang was driven mad, and she immediately jumped onto the dragon Chilene's back to rush up so that the little fox wouldn't land in the hands of the enemy. Just as the dragon Chilene was about to raise up, Ling Yuxiu also landed on his back. The two girls looked each other in the eyes and said in unison, "Watch out!" Boom! Sunship collided with the body replicator devils and trembled continuously from the impact. There were only 100,000 on Sunship, while the numbers of the body replicator devils were in the millions. Countless devils landed on Sunship and a bitter fight instantly began. The warriors of the Sun-Herder tribe had absorbed the Qi of Pyongyang ever since they were young, so their cultivation was extremely dense and their battle power was astounding. The strength of their corporeal body also far surpassed that of the other races, and even their children that were 10 to 15 yards tall had natural god-level power. Their magic power was incomparably pure, and they cultivated Pyongyang True Fire and Sun True Fire from the moment they were born. Their divine arts were also marvelous, and they had a variety of spirit weapons like bells, cauldrons, swords, buildings, glazed tile pagodas, which were very different from just the path of sword and knife in eternal peace. There was no worthy match for their strikes as they just blew apart the body replicator devils, but enemies' numbers were simply too high. Hundreds of devils were like hornets that were disturbed as they swarmed up to drown out the sun herders one by one. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The body replicator devils opened their huge eyeballs and devil light shot out, covering numerous sun herders in thousands of holes. Once they were injured, it was difficult for them to escape the mind control. Hundreds of devils gathered together, and the black light in their eyes would shine on the body of the injured sun herder. That person's face would then warp, and their mind would then continuously be tampered. Even their face couldn't be saved from damage. Their eyes would rapidly gather together, and the two eyeballs would fuse to become a huge single one that was situated at the center of the face. Their mouth would start to move downwards and their chin would grow longer and longer until they become another body replicator and follow the devils to attack their own tribesmen. Sun-Herder Chief brought a few elders to fight with all they had. There was no lack of extremely terrifying opponents among the body replicator devil race, which were strong practitioners that had assimilated. Their abilities were incomparably powerful, and some even wielded devil god weapons to attack. The old chief raised his head and saw dozens of huge dragons slaying enemies in the sky and causing heaven to fall and earth to rend from their battle. The flood dragons had attracted quite a bunch of experts from among the devils. However, there were simply too many devils which continuously surged forth. Why isn't His Highness making a move? Just as the old chief thought that, the 12 legs of Sunship suddenly opened up and walked toward the sky barrier. The speed of Sunship grew faster and faster. The huge ship that was like a land city was actually increasing in speed to rush toward the sky barrier. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" The old chief immediately tore apart a strong practitioner of the devil race in anger. He then rushed toward the heart of Sunship and shouted, "Your Highness, you can't." Boom! With a world-shaking bang, Sunship crashed through the sky barrier and rushed out of the area covered by Sunwell. A huge body replicator devil god was kneeling on the ground there. With two hands supporting its body, it had stabbed its chin into the sky barrier of Sunwell. Behind its body were bone wings which were vibrating continuously. They would flap once in a while to raise up gusts of black wind. The instant Sunship broke through the sky barrier, that wind blew it backward. The devil god hurriedly flapped its wings, wanting to fly up, but Qin Mu suddenly grabbed onto the chains and exerted his force to swing the sun that was in midair. The old chief had a blank gaze as he stared at Qin Mu swinging the son of their sun-haired tribe as a weapon to smash it ruthlessly against the body replicator devil god, blasting him into smithereens with a single blow. My God, the old chief's legs became weak and he collapsed onto the floor on his butt. His Highness is too violent. As long as he gets the chance, he will stop at nothing. This video will end here.